No one touches me. The Alpha King's voice struck the great hall like a warning shot, and every wolf inside Blackridge Palace went still. King Everett Blackwood stood beneath the iron chandeliers with one hand gripping the edge of the council table. Snow battered the 40-foot windows behind him, but sweat darkened the collar of his black dress shirt. For nights without sleep had carved shadows beneath his eyes. His wolf pressed against his skin, furious and afraid, searching for an enemy no one else could see. A silver serving tray slipped from a young attendant's hands and hit the marble floor. The crash echoed. Everett's eyes flashed from gray to burning silver. Chairs scraped backward. Visiting alphas lowered their heads, while guards reached for restraints they prayed they would not need. "Clear the room," Gideon Vale ordered. The king's beta moved carefully, keeping his palms visible. "Everett, look at me. I said get them out." Everett's words came low and controlled, which frightened Gideon more than a roar would have. Counselor Von Harrow remained near the throne, his lined face calm. 8 packs came here to see a king," he said, "not a man who cannot survive a council dinner." Everett turned toward him. The air changed. Harrow finally stepped back. Lady Sloane Mercer rose from her seat beside the empty queen's chair. She did not look frightened, but her fingers tightened around the back of the chair. "Your Majesty, the treaty can wait until morning. Morning won't fix this." Everett's claws pressed into the wooden table, leaving 4 deep marks. "Nothing has." The truth hung in the hall. For 3 years, the Alpha King had slept only in broken minutes. Physicians had drugged him. Healers had burned herbs beneath his bed. Pack elders had brought prayers, charms, and promises. Every attempt ended the same way, with Everett waking wild-eyed, convinced someone was coming to kill him. Gideon guided the last delegates toward the doors. Restricted wing. Now, Everett walked out under his own power, though each step looked like a battle. He passed servants who flattened themselves against the walls and guards who refused to meet his eyes. By the time he reached the old strategy room, his breathing had turned rough. He slammed the oak door and locked it from within. "No one comes inside," he called. "Not even you, Gideon." Minutes later, Clara Whitmore entered the corridor carrying a medical case. Her plain gray uniform marked her as palace staff. The small omega pin at her collar told everyone exactly where she stood in the pack hierarchy. A guard blocked her path. "Wrong hallway." Dr. Pierce requested sedatives. "Leave them and go." Clara set the case down, but then she heard something behind the locked door. Not furniture breaking, not an alpha's growl. A strained breath, followed by a sound so quiet the guards missed it. Clara didn't. It was the sound of a wolf trying not to beg for help. She moved 1 step closer. Inside the room, Everett suddenly froze. Through the smoke, medicine, and cold stone, a new scent reached him: warm cedar, black tea, and rain. His claws slowly withdrew. Then the most feared wolf in North America whispered a name he had never been told. "Clara." Clara stared at the locked door, every instinct telling her to step back. But Everett had said her name like he had known it for years. The guard beside her shifted uneasily. "Did he just call for you?" Clara kept her eyes on the door. "I have never met him." Inside the strategy room, something heavy scraped across the floor. Everett's breathing came fast and uneven, then stopped the moment Clara moved closer. Gideon appeared at the end of the corridor, his coat half-buttoned and snow still melting on his shoulders. "What happened?" "The king spoke her name," the guard said. Gideon looked at Clara, then at the plain omega pin on her collar. His expression hardened with confusion. "Your full name?" "Clara Whitmore." "Has King Everett ever seen you before?" "Not that I know of." A low growl rolled through the door, making the guard take another step back. Clara did not move. She had spent years in the palace infirmary treating patrol wolves who woke from nightmares believing they were still trapped in the woods. Fear usually made people louder. Pain made them quiet. Everett was trying very hard to stay quiet. "Your Majesty," Gideon called. Clara brought the medicine. "No medicine." Everett's voice sounded rougher now. "Send everyone away." Gideon glanced at Clara. "That includes you." She bent to pick up the medical case, but as soon as she turned, a sharp thud sounded from inside. The scent of panic slipped beneath the door, cold and metallic. Clara paused. "He is getting worse." "He is an Alpha King," the guard muttered. "He does not need an Omega telling him how he feels." Clara looked at him. "Then why is everyone standing out here while he suffers alone?" The corridor went silent. Gideon almost smiled, but the sound behind the door erased it. Everett gave a strained breath. Clara set the case down again and sat on the floor with her back against the wall beside the entrance. "What are you doing?" Gideon asked. "Following his order. I am not going inside." She raised her voice just enough to carry through the oak. "I am leaving the sedative outside. You do not have to take it. Go away, Clara." "I will. In a minute." She folded her hands in her lap. "It is snowing hard enough to shut down Interstate 90 tonight. My dad used to say storms like this make the whole world smaller." No answer came. Clara continued anyway, telling him about the little diner near her childhood home in Montana, where the coffee was terrible and the pie was worth driving 20 miles through snow. Her voice stayed steady. Nothing important. Nothing royal. Just ordinary things. Behind the door, Everett's heartbeat began to slow. His wolf, which had fought every physician and every command for 3 years, went still to listen. Gideon watched the change on the monitor attached to the wall. "His pulse is dropping," he whispered. Clara looked toward the door. "That is good, right?" Before Gideon could answer, Everett spoke again, quieter this time. "Do not stop." Clara rested her head against the cold wood and kept talking. On the other side, Everett lowered himself to the floor, placing one hand against the exact spot where her shoulder touched the door. Neither of them saw the faint crescent light appearing beneath Clara's sleeve. Clara kept talking until the storm outside softened from a roar to a steady hiss against the windows. She told Everett about the first truck she ever drove, an old blue Ford that stalled every time the temperature dropped below 20 degrees. She told him about her father teaching her to change a tire on the side of a mountain road. She even told him about the stray dog that used to wait behind the diner for bacon every Sunday morning. None of it mattered, and somehow that was exactly why it worked. Inside the strategy room, Everett sat with his back against the door, listening to a life that had nothing to do with treaties, bloodlines, or crowns. "Why are you not afraid of me?" he asked. Clara looked down at her hands. "I am afraid." Gideon and the guard both turned toward her. Clara ignored them. "You sounded calm enough." Everett's voice was still rough, but the edge had faded. Being calm and being fearless are not the same thing. "Then why stay?" Clara thought about giving him the safe answer. "Duty. Medical training. Respect for the king." Instead, she said, "Because fear does not give me permission to leave someone alone when they are hurting." Silence followed. Not an empty silence. A listening one. Everett lowered his head. For 3 years, everyone who entered his rooms had carried something they wanted from him. Approval. Rank. Protection. A royal marriage. Clara wanted nothing except for his breathing to steady. That unsettled him more than her scent did. "Who told you my name?" she asked. "No one." "Then how did you know it?" Everett stared at the grain of the oak door. His wolf had known before his mind did. The name had risen inside him with the certainty of instinct, the same way a wolf knew north without seeing the stars. "I heard the guard say it," he lied. Clara glanced at Gideon. The beta gave a small shake of his head. Everett had spoken her name first. She did not challenge him. "Not yet." "How long have you worked here?" he asked. "Almost 4 years." "In my palace?" "Mostly below your palace. The infirmary is 2 floors down and smells like antiseptic and burnt coffee." A quiet sound came from inside. Clara realized it was almost a laugh. "That coffee should be considered an act of war," Everett said. "Finally, something the Pax can agree on." Gideon looked between the door and Clara as if the building itself had started speaking. No one joked with Everett during an episode. No one had ever stayed long enough to try. Clara shifted her shoulder against the wood. A pulse of warmth moved down her arm. She frowned and pushed back her sleeve. A pale crescent mark glowed beneath the skin of her wrist. She covered it quickly, but Gideon had already seen. His expression changed. "Clara," he said carefully, "where did you get that mark?" "I did not." The light brightened once, keeping time with the heartbeat behind the door. Everett felt it too. His wolf rose inside him, no longer frantic, but alert. Clara placed her palm against the oak without thinking. On the other side, Everett lifted his hand toward the same spot. The instant his skin met the door, warmth passed between them. Clara drew in a sharp breath. Everett whispered one word, too low for anyone except her to hear. "Mine." Then he pulled his hand away as though the word had frightened him more than the madness ever had. "Do not say that again," Clara whispered. On the other side of the door, Everett went completely still. He had not meant to speak the word aloud. His wolf had pushed it past every wall he had built, claiming certainty where the man had none. "You should leave," he said. This time, the command sounded less like authority and more like fear. Clara pulled her hand away from the oak. The crescent mark beneath her sleeve faded, but the warmth remained in her palm. That was already the plan. Gideon stepped toward her. "Clara, wait." No, she picked up the medical case. "He is calmer. He does not need me standing here while everyone studies me like a lab result." Everett heard every word. Shame moved through him, sharp and unfamiliar. He wanted to open the door, explain that the word had not been in order, but the moment Clara's footsteps started down the corridor, his wolf surged against him. The room tilted. His breath caught. A chair struck the wall as he reached for balance. Gideon turned toward the door. "Everett." No answer. Then came a low, broken growl. Clara stopped. The pulse monitor began climbing again. "His heart rate is over 160, Gideon said. "Get Dr. Pierce." The guard ran. Clara closed her eyes for 1 second, angry at Everett, angry at herself, and most of all angry that she could feel his panic as if it were pressing against her ribs. She returned to the door. "Your Majesty, unlock it." "No." "Then I am going back downstairs." The lock turned before she finished the sentence. Gideon reached for the handle, but Clara caught his wrist. "He said no one touches him. That includes you." "I know." She opened the door carefully. The strategy room smelled of smoke, cedar, and the bitter medicine Everett had refused. Maps covered the walls. A long table had been pushed several feet out of place. Everett stood near the window, one hand braced against the stone, his silver eyes fixed on her. "Stay by the door," he said. Clara did. "Sit down. You do not give orders in this room." "I thought that was the main benefit of being king." His mouth almost moved. Then pain crossed his face, and the humor vanished. Clara lowered herself to the carpet beside the bed instead. "Fine. I will sit for both of us." She began talking again, keeping her voice steady. She told him about the all-night grocery store near the highway, where the cashier knew every customer by name. She told him how normal people handled bad nights. They watched old movies. They ate cereal for dinner. They complained about the weather. Everett listened from across the room until his breathing slowed. One step at a time, he moved closer. Clara did not reach for him. When his knees finally gave way, she caught only his shoulder, gentle enough to guide him down. His head rested against the edge of the mattress beside her. "You should be afraid," he murmured. "I am," Clara said. "I stayed anyway." His eyes closed. Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 30. Gideon stood in the doorway without speaking. The king who had not slept through a single hour in 3 years drifted deeper, one hand loosely wrapped around Clara's wrist. Sometime before dawn, Clara leaned against the bed and fell asleep too. When Everett woke, sunlight was touching the windows, and Clara was still beside him. His grip tightened before he could stop it. "Who gave you permission to leave?" he asked. Clara opened her eyes. There was no anger in his voice, only the unmistakable fear that she might. Clara blinked at him, still caught between sleep and disbelief. "You told everyone to leave you alone. I assumed that included me." Everett released her wrist at once, as if he had only just realized he was holding it. That was before. Before what? He looked toward the pale morning light spilling across the room. Before he had slept for nearly 5 hours. Before his wolf had gone quiet with her beside him. Before waking without terror for the first time in years. "Before I knew you could help," he said. Clara pushed herself upright and rubbed the stiffness from her shoulder. "That sounds a lot like you were planning to turn me into palace equipment." Gideon, who had remained near the doorway through the night, looked down to hide a smile. Everett stood slowly. Even rested, he filled the room with the hard authority of a king, but something in his face had changed. The strain around his eyes had eased. "You will be transferred to the Royal Medical Wing." Clara stared at him. "That was not a request." "No, then my answer is no." Gideon looked up. Everett's expression went still. Most wolves lowered their eyes when he used that tone. Clara reached for her medical case. "I have patients downstairs. I have a schedule. I have a life that existed before you decided I belong in your hallway." Everett's wolf stirred at the word belong, but the man held it back. "Your current duties can be reassigned. That is not the point." "Then explain the point." "The point is that I am not moving into a restricted wing because you finally got one good night of sleep." By noon, the disagreement had followed them into the royal council chamber. 8 alpha representatives sat around the long black table, while Clara stood at the far end in her gray uniform. Her omega pin looked small beneath the iron wolf crest carved into the wall. Counselor Harrow barely concealed his irritation. This is an internal medical matter. She does not belong in a council meeting. Everett sat at the head of the table. She belongs wherever decisions about her are being made. Lady Sloane Mercer studied Clara with sharp, unreadable eyes. And what exactly is her role? Royal Medical Specialist, Everett said. Clara folded her arms. Not yet. The room went quiet. Harrow gave a humorless laugh. Your Majesty, allowing an Omega to negotiate terms before the entire council sets a dangerous precedent. Everett turned his gaze on him. Then let it. Clara placed both hands on the table. 3 conditions. I am paid as a specialist, not as support staff. I can leave the room whenever I choose. And no one, including the king, refers to me as property. A low murmur moved through the chamber. Everett did not look away from her. Agreed. Harrow leaned forward. You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious. The words landed with enough weight to silence every alpha in the room. Clara expected satisfaction. Instead, she felt the faint pull beneath her ribs again, warm and unsettling. Everett had listened to her, not because she had soothed his wolf, but because she had said no. After the meeting, Gideon caught up with her outside the royal wing and handed her a thick medical file. You should see this before you accept anything. Clara opened it while they walked. The records covered 3 years of sleepless episodes, failed treatments, and unexplained changes in Everett's blood work. Then the pages stopped. The final section had been torn out cleanly. Clara looked at Gideon. Who removed them? His jaw tightened. That is what I need you to find out. From the end of the corridor, Everett watched them speak. Clara turned another page and found a faded note written in the margin beside an old test result. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the warning was clear. Do not let the king fall asleep alone. The warning stayed with Clara long after Gideon left her outside the royal medical wing. Do not let the king fall asleep alone. It did not sound like advice from a physician. It sounded like someone had known exactly what would happen if Everett closed his eyes without protection. Clara carried the file downstairs to the palace archives, where Nora Bennett was cataloging supply records with a pencil tucked behind one ear. You look like you found a body, Nora said. Just missing pages. Clara set the file on the desk. Which might be worse? Nora read the note twice, then glanced toward the locked records room. These files are supposed to be sealed by the royal physician, Dr. Pierce. He has controlled medical access since before Everett became king. Clara lowered her voice. Can you find out who checked this file out? Nora gave her a flat look. Officially? Would I be standing in a basement asking you if I meant officially? 20 minutes later, they were inside the oldest section of the archives, where the air smelled like dust, cold stone, and paper that had survived too many winters. Nora pulled a ledger from a steel cabinet. The medical file was accessed 6 times during the past year. 5 entries belonged to Pierce. And the 6th, Nora turned the book around. The name had been written in faded blue ink. Evelyn Whitmore. Clara stopped breathing for a second. That was my mother. I thought she died when you were 12. She did. Clara touched the signature with one finger. She also never told me she worked here. They searched the shelves until Nora found an employment record filed under an older surname. Evelyn Hale, Night Healer, Restricted Royal Service. Beside her name was a symbol Clara recognized immediately. A crescent moon split by a vertical line. The same shape now hidden beneath her sleeve. What is that? Nora asked. I do not know. That was not entirely true. Clara remembered seeing it once on a silver pendant her mother kept locked in a kitchen drawer. When Clara asked about it, Evelyn had taken the necklace away and said some family stories were safer when forgotten. They followed the symbol through a set of records dating back more than 2 decades. Moonkeepers, a bloodline of wolves once assigned to royal households. They could settle unstable alpha instincts, strengthen weakened bonds, and enter the edge of another wolf's dreams without taking control. The final report called them traitors. Every surviving member had been expelled from the northern packs after an attempted attack on the crown. This cannot be right, Clara said. My mother hated violence. She used to carry spiders outside because she could not stand killing them. Nora pulled a narrow metal box from the back of the shelf. Inside rested half of a broken silver crest. Clara picked it up and the mark beneath her sleeve flared warm. Words were engraved on the back. Evelyn Hale Whitmore, Royal Moonkeeper. Clara turned the crest over. A second line had been cut more deeply into the metal. Condemned by order of King Alaric Blackwood, Everett's father. Footsteps sounded beyond the archive door. Nora shut the box. Someone is coming. Dr. Malcolm Pierce entered without knocking. His gaze moved from Clara to the open records and finally to the silver crest in her hand. The friendly warmth he wore in the infirmary disappeared. "You were never supposed to find that," he said. Clara closed her fingers around the crest. "Then you should have destroyed it better." Pierce stepped inside and locked the door behind him. "Your mother made the same mistake you are making now. Trying to help the king? Believing the Blackwood family wanted to be saved." Above them, far beyond the stone ceiling, Everett woke from a shallow sleep with Clara's fear burning through him as clearly as his own. Clara held Pierce's stare, even as the fear inside her sharpened. "What happened to my mother?" Pierce glanced at Nora, then back at the broken crest in Clara's hand. "She discovered things the crown could not afford to admit." "That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting tonight." He reached for the archive ledger, but a heavy impact struck the other side of the locked door. The metal frame shook. Everett's voice came through the stone corridor, calm enough to be dangerous. "Open it." Pierce went pale. "Your Majesty, this section is restricted. You have 3 seconds." Nora stepped away from the door. Clara did not. The lock turned before Everett reached too. He entered with Gideon behind him, dressed in black pants and a dark sweater instead of royal formal wear. But no one could have mistaken him for anything less than the Alpha King. His eyes found Clara first. Only after confirming she was standing did he look at Pierce. Why was she afraid? Pierce recovered quickly. "Miss Whitmore entered sealed records without authorization." "That was not my question." The room tightened around Everett's voice. Clara felt his wolf pressing close beneath the surface, not wild this time, but focused entirely on her. She hated that part of her wanted to step toward him. She hated even more that she no longer knew whether the Blackwood family had destroyed hers. "I am fine," she said. Everett looked at her hand. "You are crushing something." Clara opened her fingers and revealed the broken Moonkeeper crest. Everett read his father's name engraved on the back. The change in his face was small, but she saw it. "Did you know?" she asked. "No," Pierce gave a dry laugh. "Kings are always surprised by the crimes that built their thrones." Everett turned toward him. "Leave. You need me." "That has not been established." Pierce gathered his papers and moved past Gideon, but paused beside Clara. "Ask him what happened to the last Moonkeeper who tried to save a Blackwood." Then he walked out. Clara waited until the door closed. "My mother worked here. Your father condemned her. No one told me she was a Moonkeeper, and now I find out I can calm you because of blood I did not know I had." "Clara, do not use my name like that." Everett stopped. She could feel the bond between them, faint but undeniable, pulling her toward the one man she had the best reason not to trust. "Was any of this real to you?" she asked. "Or did your wolf recognize a useful bloodline?" The question struck deeper than she intended. Everett stepped closer, then stopped several feet away, giving her space. "I did not know what you were. But you knew about the political marriage." His silence answered too quickly. Clara looked at him. "Lady Sloane, the council has pushed that alliance for months. And you never thought to mention it while asking me to stay near you?" "I had not agreed. You also had not refused." Everett's jaw tightened, but he did not defend himself. For once, the Alpha King had no command that could repair what silence had broken. Clara moved around him and left the archives. She did not stop until she reached the palace greenhouse, where frost coated the glass and the scent of wet soil cut through the cold. Everett found her there minutes later. "I should have told you," he said. Clara kept her back to him. "Yes. I thought distance from council politics would protect you. You do not protect me by deciding what I am allowed to know." The truth landed, and Everett accepted it. When Clara finally turned, the crescent mark on her wrist had begun to glow again. Pain moved through her, sudden and bright, and her knees weakened. Everett caught her elbow, then immediately loosened his hand. "May I?" he asked. Clara looked at him, at the king who could command 8 packs, but was waiting for one Omega to choose. She nodded. His palm closed gently around her wrist. Warmth rushed between them. His wolf went silent. Hers rose for the first time in years. Deep inside Everett's mind, one word sounded with absolute certainty. "Mate." Before either of them could speak, the palace bells began to ring. Gideon appeared at the greenhouse entrance, his face grim. The council has called an emergency session. Everett did not release Clara's wrist. Why? Gideon looked between them. They are announcing your engagement to Lady Sloane tonight. The engagement announcement reached the palace before Everett and Clara left the greenhouse. By the time they entered the west corridor, servants were already hanging silver banners beneath the Blackwood crest, and members of the visiting packs were gathering near the great hall. Clara pulled her wrist from Everett's hand. The loss of contact left a cold space beneath her ribs. You should go, she said, not without explaining. There is nothing to explain. The council made its choice, and you let them believe they could. Everett's face tightened. I will stop the announcement. Will you stop the alliance too? He did not answer fast enough. Clara looked away. That is what I thought. Lady Sloane found Clara 20 minutes later in an empty sitting room beside the ballroom. She had changed into a dark green gown, elegant without trying too hard, and the gold pin at her shoulder marked her as the daughter of one of the strongest alpha families in the Northern Alliance. I asked to speak with you privately, Sloane said. Clara remained standing. To warn me away from him? No. To tell you what he is not. Sloane closed the door. 3 packs control the western border. My father holds 2 of them together through trade and military agreements. If Everett rejects this engagement without another plan, they may leave the alliance before spring. So he marries you, and everyone stays loyal. That is the theory. Sloane's voice held no triumph. I am not asking for your sympathy. I was raised for this. But you should understand the cost before you decide. He betrayed you for a crown. Clara met her eyes. He betrayed me by keeping me close while hiding the decision. On that point, we agree. The honesty surprised her. Sloane moved toward the window, watching snow gather on the stone courtyard. He knew the council planned to announce tonight. He hoped to delay it. He should have told me. Yes. Sloane turned back. But there is something else you should know. Harrow believes you are controlling him. If Everett publicly chooses you now, they will not see a mate bond. They will see a compromised king and a moonkeeper with access to his mind. The words settled heavily between them. From the great hall came the sound of music beginning. Clara touched the hidden crescent mark on her wrist. Do you love him? She asked. Sloane gave a small, tired smile. No, I respect him. In royal marriages, that is considered generous. The ballroom was filled when Clara entered through the servant's door. She wore her gray medical uniform because changing into something finer would have felt like pretending. Across the room, Everett stood beside the throne in formal black, surrounded by council members and visiting alphas. Harrow raised a glass. Tonight, we secure the future of the Northern Packs. Everett's gaze found Clara immediately. The bond between them pulled tight, carrying regret, anger, and something deeper neither of them was ready to name. Harrow continued. King Everett Blackwood will unite his house with Lady Sloane Mercer under the next blood moon. Clara felt the room waiting for Everett's answer. He stepped forward. The council does not announce my decisions for me. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Harrow's smile weakened. A server approached with a tray of champagne. One glass was placed in Everett's hand. Clara caught the scent before he lifted it. Bitter herbs beneath the wine. The same cold metallic note she had felt outside the strategy room. Her mark burned. Do not drink that, she said. Several heads turned, but Everett had already brought the glass near his mouth. Clara crossed the floor and struck it from his hand. Crystal shattered across the marble. The entire ballroom went silent. Harrow stared at her. Omega, do you understand what you have done? Clara looked at the spilled wine, then at Everett. Beneath the scent of grapes and oak was something meant to keep his wolf terrified of sleep. She raised her voice so every pack could hear. Someone just tried to poison the king. For one long second, no one moved. Then the ballroom erupted. Guards closed around Everett while visiting alphas demanded answers from across the marble floor. Clara stood beside the spilled wine, her heart pounding as Dr. Malcolm Pierce pushed through the crowd with a medical kit. Do not touch it, she said. Pierce gave her a cold look. You are not in charge here. Neither are you until we know what is in that glass. Counselor Harrow lifted one hand, calling the room to order. This Omega has interrupted a royal ceremony and publicly accused the council of treason without evidence. Everett stepped between Clara and the nearest guard. Test the wine. Pierce knelt beside the shattered crystal, dipped a strip into the liquid, and waited. The The color did not change. No known poison, he announced. A murmur rolled through the hall. Harrow turned toward Clara. You claimed certainty. I smelled something in it. A scent only you could detect. His voice sharpened. How convenient for a moonkeeper. Clara felt the accusation spread through the room before anyone repeated it. Several pack leaders looked at her with open suspicion. Others stared at Everett, measuring whether their king had been compromised. Pierce stood. Moonkeepers were once capable of influencing alpha instincts. If she has been using that ability on His Majesty, his recent behavior may not be his own. That is a lie, Clara said. Is it? Harrow gestured toward Everett. He changed her rank after one night. He brought her into private councils. He challenged a necessary alliance. Now she claims an invisible poison is threatening him. Everett's wolf pressed forward, furious, but Clara felt him holding it back. Enough, he said. The single word silenced the room. Harrow did not lower his head. Then prove you remain in control. Place her under royal custody until the council completes an investigation. Clara turned to Everett. Through the bond, she felt conflict, fear, and a terrible calculation forming behind his eyes. Do not do this, she whispered. Gideon moved closer to the king. The west gate is surrounded by Mercer wolves. If she leaves the palace now, we cannot guarantee her safety. Everett's gaze stayed on Clara. Clara Whitmore will be held in the lower royal wing. Her face went still. You promised I could leave whenever I chose. Not tonight. The words hurt more because he spoke them quietly. 2 guards approached, but Everett stopped them with a look. No chains. No rough handling. Gideon takes her personally. Harrow smiled as if he had already won. Clara removed the omega pin from her collar and placed it in Everett's palm. You said I belonged wherever decisions about me were being made. Clara, listen to me. I did. That was my mistake. Gideon escorted her from the ballroom while every pack watched. Everett did not follow. He could not explain that Harrow's supporters controlled the outer grounds, or that custody was the only order he could give that kept her inside walls still loyal to him. He could only stand beneath the Blackwood crest and let her believe he had chosen the throne. Hours later, Clara sat alone in a narrow stone room beneath the east tower. The cell was clean, but silver bars lined the doorway, dulling the warmth of the bond until Everett felt impossibly far away. She pressed her hand against the wall and noticed shallow words scratched into the stone near the floor. The handwriting was faded, but familiar from old birthday cards and grocery lists. Her mother's handwriting. Clara knelt and read the message aloud. The poison does not kill the wolf. It teaches him to fear sleep. A second line had been carved beneath it, almost hidden by dust. And the man who orders the cure is the one feeding him the poison. Clara stared at the words as footsteps approached the cell. Dr. Pierce appeared on the other side of the silver bars, carrying a fresh vial of Everett's medicine. Your mother understood too late, he said. Let us see whether you make the same mistake. That medicine is not for him, Clara said. Pierce held the vial up to the light, his expression almost bored. You are in no position to make that judgment. My mother was. His eyes shifted toward the words carved into the wall. That was enough. Clara stepped closer to the silver bars. She found out you were keeping Everett sick. Pierce gave a quiet sigh. Your mother found out the treatment was necessary. Necessary for who? For the Alliance. He slipped the vial into his coat. A fully rested Blackwood is too powerful to control. His father understood that. Harrow understands it now. The hidden truth landed harder than Clara expected. King Alaric had not merely condemned the Moonkeepers. He had used their knowledge to weaken his own son. Everett was a child. He was an heir, Pierce replied. There is a difference. Footsteps sounded at the end of the corridor. Pierce turned, but Lady Sloane appeared before he could leave. She wore no ceremonial smile now. Counselor Harrow is asking for you. Pierce's face tightened. Then tell him I am coming. He wants the vial too. Sloane looked directly at Clara. Pierce hesitated, then walked away without another word. Sloane waited until his footsteps faded. My father signed the original medical orders, she said. Clara stared at her. You knew? I found the records an hour ago. Sloane's voice shook once, then steadied. He told me it was meant to protect the Western Pax from an unstable king. He called it prevention. And Harrow wants Everett weak enough for the council to rule through him. Tonight, he plans to invoke the emergency succession clause during the blood moon ceremony. Clara looked at the silver bars, then opened the door. Sloane removed a key from her sleeve. If I do this, my father loses everything. If you do not, Everett may lose more than a throne. The lock clicked. Clara stepped into the corridor, but stopped beside Sloane. Helping now does not erase what your family did. I know. Sloane met her eyes. I am not asking to be forgiven. Together, they reached the archive room where Nora and Gideon had spread old medical files across a table. Gideon looked relieved when he saw Clara. Everett ordered your release 10 minutes ago, but Harrow blocked it. Where is he? Clara asked. In the ceremonial hall. Pierce gave him another dose before the bell started. Nora pushed a document toward Clara. It carried King Alaric's seal and a list of Moonkeeper names. Evelyn Whitmore's name had been marked beside one sentence. Refused continued conditioning of the heir. Clara finally understood. Her mother had not betrayed the crown. She had refused to poison Everett. Gideon opened another file. The compound does not create madness. It makes sleep trigger a fear response. Every time Everett rests, his wolf believes he is under attack. That is why my presence calms him, Clara said. Moonkeeper blood interrupts the response. Nora nodded. But the doses are getting stronger. If Pierce gave him what I think he did, Everett may not survive another forced shift. The first blood moon bell rang above them. The stone walls seemed to vibrate. Through the weakened mate bond, Clara felt Everett's pain, distant but growing. Then his presence vanished completely. Gideon went pale. Harrow has sealed the ceremonial hall. They ran upstairs as the second bell sounded. Pack leaders filled the corridors, while royal guards stood divided between Gideon's orders and the council's command. Inside the great hall, Harrow addressed the 8 packs from the foot of the throne. King Everett Blackwood is no longer capable of fulfilling his duty. By ancient law, authority now passes to the royal council. Everett stood beside the throne, one hand gripping its carved arm, his face drained of color. Pierce remained close, carrying the empty vial. Clara pushed through the doors. The law was triggered by a crime you created. Every head turned. Harrow's expression hardened. She is under arrest. No, Sloane said, stepping forward with her father's signed orders in hand. She is a witness. Everett looked at Clara, but the bond between them stayed silent. His knees gave way as the third bell began to ring. Harrow raised his voice over the shocked crowd. Seal the palace. Clara rushed toward Everett, but silver-clad guards closed around the throne. Before the doors slammed shut, she heard him whisper her name. The silver-clad guards carried Everett beneath the throne before Clara could reach him. A hidden door closed behind them, cutting off his scent and leaving the mate bond silent. Where are they taking him? Clara demanded. Gideon shoved past 2 council guards and reached the sealed wall. The old restraint chamber. It was built for royal wolves who lost control during the blood moon. Harrow stood at the foot of the throne, calm amid the confusion. King Everett is being protected from himself. You poisoned him, Clara said. You taught his wolf to fear sleep, then called the fear proof that he was unfit to rule. Pack leaders began murmuring, but Harrow raised his voice. Remove the Moonkeeper. Sloane stepped beside Clara and held up the signed medical orders. Anyone who touches her will answer for destroying evidence against the crown. Her father, Alpha Mercer, stared at her from across the hall. Sloane, stand down. She looked at him with tears she refused to let fall. You raised me to protect the packs. You never said that meant protecting your lies. Gideon found the release lever behind the throne. The hidden door opened to a narrow staircase, dropping into darkness. Clara followed him down, with Nora and Sloane close behind. The air grew colder with every step. At the bottom, they found Everett inside a circular chamber lined with silver. He was on his knees, fighting to remain human while the poison drove his wolf into panic. Chains secured his wrists to the stone floor, but he did not pull against them. He was using every piece of control he had left. Clara, stay back, he said. His voice barely carried across the room. She approached the edge of the silver circle. I can help you. No, my mother left instructions in the records. Nora opened the recovered journal with shaking hands. A Moonkeeper can draw the conditioned fear out of an alpha, but the bond between them carries the cost. Gideon looked at Clara. What cost? The bond could break, she said. I might lose my wolf. I might never feel him again. Everett lifted his head. His eyes were silver, but his expression was completely his own. Then you are not doing it. You do not get to command me now. I am not commanding you. His voice cracked under the strain. I am asking. Clara stepped into the circle. Pain pressed against her skin, but she kept moving until she knelt in front of him. Everett turned his hands away, afraid even the smallest touch might hurt her. Listen to me, he said. Harrow can have the crown. The council can tear down every Blackwood banner in this palace. I will not let you become the price of saving my throne. Clara's anger softened, but it did not disappear. This is not about your throne. Then what is it about? My choice. She held his gaze. You kept the truth from me. You locked me away to protect me. You decided what I could survive without ever asking. Do not make that mistake again. Everett closed his eyes. For a man who ruled 8 packs, surrender had never come easily. This time, he opened his hands. All right. Clara placed one palm over his heart and the other against the crescent mark on her wrist. White light spread between them, warm at first, then sharp with memories that did not belong to her. A frightened boy waking in a locked room. A physician holding a silver vial. King Alaric calling fear a lesson in obedience. Clara felt Everett's wolf trapped inside every nightmare, waiting for the next attack. You are not there anymore, she whispered. You are here with me. The chain stopped trembling. Everett leaned toward her voice as the poison's hold began to break. Then the light flared, and the mate bond pulled tight enough to steal the breath from both of them. Clara, Everett said, fear returning for one final moment. She smiled through the pain. This time, you are not waking alone. The silver circle went dark. Everett opened his eyes, clear and gray once more. Clara lay motionless in his arms. He reached for the bond and found nothing but silence. Everett held Clara against him and listened for a heartbeat he could barely hear. Clara. His voice broke on her name. Gideon dropped to one knee beside them while Nora opened Evelyn's journal with trembling hands. She is alive, Nora said. The ritual drained the bond, not her life. Everett looked down at Clara's still face. Then wake her. I cannot force it. Nora turned another page. She has to find her own way back. Above them, the 4th blood moon bell shook dust from the stone ceiling. Harrow's voice carried faintly through the chamber as he ordered the pack leaders to recognize the council's emergency rule. Everett rose with Clara in his arms. The poison was gone. His wolf was quiet, not broken, and for the first time in years, every thought belonged to him. Gideon, open the hall. You are not ready. Neither is Harrow. Clara stirred before they reached the stairs. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then clear. Everett stopped. Relief crossed his face so openly that Gideon looked away. Can you stand? Everett asked. Clara tested her legs. I think so. He loosened his hold immediately, letting her choose whether to remain close. She stepped down, but kept one hand on his arm. The bond is gone, she whispered. Everett felt the empty place between them. I know. Clara searched his expression for disappointment. He only said, You are here. That is enough. They entered the great hall together. Harrow stood before the throne with Pierce beside him, and the council gathered behind them. Pack representatives filled the room, divided and uncertain. When Everett appeared, conversation died. Harrow recovered first. Your Majesty, you are medically unfit to lead. According to the physician who poisoned me? Everett asked. Pierce's face lost its color. Gideon placed the recovered vials and medical orders on the council table. Nora followed with Evelyn Whitmore's journal. Sloane stepped forward holding documents bearing her father's seal. These records proved the treatment began under King Alaric and continued under Counselor Harrow's authority. Alpha Mercer rose from his seat. Sloane, you do not understand what is at stake. She faced him across the hall. I understand that you helped weaken a king, destroyed an innocent bloodline, and called it stability. Harrow pointed at Clara. This entire accusation depends on the word of an Omega whose family was convicted of treason. Clara walked to the center of the hall. She wore no rank pin and carried no royal title. My mother was convicted because she refused to keep poisoning a child. Harrow laughed once. You have no right to address this council. Everett descended the steps from the throne. Every alpha watched as he stopped beside Clara instead of above her. Then the council will listen without its king. He removed the black iron crown and placed it on the lowest stone step. Because if that throne requires her silence, it is not worth defending. The room went completely still. Clara opened Evelyn's journal and read the names of the moonkeepers who had been expelled, imprisoned, or erased from pack records. Nora presented the blood work. Gideon explained the missing pages. Sloane testified that Harrow had planned to use Everett's collapse to seize permanent control. Pierce tried to leave, but the royal guards blocked the doors. Harrow's certainty finally cracked. You cannot rule without the council. Everett met his gaze. A council serves the packs. It does not own them. He ordered Harrow stripped of authority and placed before a tribunal representing every pack harmed by his actions. Pierce was removed from the Royal Medical Service and required to surrender all hidden treatment records. No one cheered. The justice was too heavy for celebration. Everett turned to Clara as the guards escorted Harrow away. What happens now is your choice. Clara looked at the crown resting between them. I saved you because I chose to. I know. That does not mean I have decided to stay. Pain moved through Everett, but he did not reach for her. I know that too. Clara looked around the hall, at 8 packs waiting for a king's command and an Omega's answer. Then she walked past the crown without picking it up. Clara left Blackridge Palace before sunrise, carrying her mother's journal and nothing that belonged to the crown. Everett did not stop her. That was the first proof that he had finally understood what love required. 6 weeks later, the northern packs gathered again, not for an engagement or a coronation, but for the first open council in Blackridge history. Omega healers sat beside alpha commanders. Small packs were given the same speaking time as powerful ones. Gideon oversaw the new guard charter. Nora became director of the Royal Archives and began restoring every Moonkeeper name that had been erased. Sloane returned west and testified against her own father. He lost his seat, his authority, and the loyalty he had mistaken for ownership. Harrow was sentenced to permanent exile from the Alliance, while Pierce surrendered years of hidden medical records and spent the rest of his life helping identify those harmed by the old treatments. It was not clean justice. Nothing could return the years Everett had lost or give Clara another childhood with her mother. But truth no longer had to whisper behind locked doors. Clara used an abandoned lodge 15 miles from the palace to build the Whitmore Center for wolf recovery. There were no silver restraints and no rules based on rank. Wolves came for sleep disorders, broken bonds, and injuries no one could see. Everett visited only after sending a letter asking permission. He arrived without guards, wearing jeans, work boots, and a dark winter coat dusted with snow. Clara met him on the porch. "You look strange without a crown," she said. "I still wear it for meetings." That was almost a joke. "Gideon says I am improving." She opened the door, but did not move aside yet. "Why are you here, Everett?" He did not give her a speech. He did not speak of fate. "Because I owe you an apology that does not ask for anything in return." Clara waited. "I hid the truth because I thought knowing would put you in danger. I ordered you confined because I believed protecting you gave me the right to take away your choice. I let you stand alone in that hall because I was afraid the throne would fall if I trusted you publicly." His voice remained steady, but the honesty cost him. "I was wrong." "Yes," Clara said. Everett nodded. "I know." He placed a folded document on the porch rail. It granted the center independent status, protected from royal control. Clara did not touch it. "Is this your way of fixing us?" "No. It is my way of fixing one thing I had the power to fix." That answer stayed with her. He returned to the palace alone. Then he came back the next week to repair a broken fence. The week after that, he brought coffee from the diner near the interstate, though it tasted terrible. He sat with frightened young wolves and never asked them to call him king. Clara watched him become a man who no longer used power to hide fear. The mate bond did not return all at once. It began as warmth when he entered a room, then a quiet awareness across the lodge. One snowy evening, Clara found Everett asleep on the old couch beside the fireplace, a book open on his chest. No medicine, no guards, no locked door. She sat beside him and covered him with a blanket. His eyes opened. "You stayed," he said. Clara looked at the fire. "Tonight, I did." Everett reached out, then stopped before touching her hand. She closed the distance herself. Warmth moved between them, gentle and familiar. Somewhere deep inside, both wolves lifted their heads. Not commanded, not claimed, chosen. Everett closed his eyes again, his hand resting loosely in hers. Years earlier, he had told an entire hall that no one was allowed to touch him. Now he slept because one woman had been free to leave and had still decided to return. Clara understood then that love was not the person who could calm the monster inside you. It was the person who showed you that you were more than the monster, then waited to see whether you would choose to become better. Outside, snow covered the road back to the palace. Inside, there was no throne, no title, and no audience. There was only a quiet room, two people who had survived the truth, and the simple peace of knowing that home was not where someone kept you. Home was where you were free and still wanted to stay.